Welcome students to the online NPTEL course Visual Communication Design for Digital Media, and we have covered all the lectures except this is the last lectures, and before that we were discussing about the visual communication design methodologies in digital media. We discussed the generic design methodology, and we also discussed about the web design and animation and graphic design methodologies. So here we will in the last lecture we will take some cases of web design and animation, because graphic design is already demonstrated with the different design principles, because graphic design is the first stage, and we have the only 2D two-dimensional image and image file. So it's the a lot of examples has been already given with the when we were discussing the theories, and also when we were discussing the methodologies. So and it has the least level of complexity, but in terms of animation and web design, there are other layers of complexity. For animation we have to there's a timeline, so each and every frames are moving on time, and for web design also the information architecture and the usability of that comes as an added element, added factor in the discussion. So here in this last module, which is in the, we will take some case studies, take some cases and discuss some websites and how they work, and also some animations. So in web design, so we have two factors in the web design. One is the aesthetics. We were discussing about the aesthetics and how what should be the style and what kind of look and feel it gives. So in that we also discussed in the previous lectures, we discussed about the contemporary visual styles, and what kind of typography and what is the meaning, and what kind of visual attributes it has. So those things will come as a aesthetic part of the communication. So and also we have the usability part of the visual communication. So visual is not just a poster, not just in graphics, it also has a usability to attach with it. It has to communicate with the user. So usability part and aesthetic part together makes a website and makes any design more comprehensible and more user friendly, and more it depends on the success, depends on the usability and aesthetic, both the aspect of the design. So here in this photograph you can see this is taken from Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. So here in this image you can see the people, how people perceive, and so it's talking about the usability part of it. And in this image you can see there are lot of divisions in terms of visual framing. So here in the sidebar there are some informations. In the body of the website there are some image. So people perceive in a different form. So what he is saying, what designers might perceive a not so successful design might be. So people start reading, designers might think that people will read everything, but in terms of the reality, what users only see is like they glance through the website and only the major attractive part will be visible. So that was also, we were discussing this in Gutenberg's principle, and all these theories apply when we read. So that you have to apply, and you have to also think that you have to also consider that people, the user will only have some few time to glance through the website, and they have to interpret the website, the meaning of the website, and what website the website or the content wants to convey within a very few time frame. Because most of the if they are attracted towards the website, and if they find out that the website will convey something meaningful to them, then they will start devoting more time into the website and start reading the next hierarchy of the content. So here the principles of hierarchy in terms of typography, we were also discussing about the hierarchy and how to achieve hierarchy through typography as well as through the design. Those principles you have to apply. So here also in this example you can see there are different hierarchy of the text and as well as the images, and hierarchy can be achieved with contrast. Hierarchy can be achieved with different kind of typefaces. So in the semiotics and visual perception lecture module also we discuss this. So based on the hierarchy, users perception, what users see depends. So here in this example, what in Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think, it's also taken from that book. So it's for purchasing a ticket, what users see is just they look at the logo and try to find out what information they are they want to see. So what for purchasing a ticket they might want to see their where they can put their initial starting point and destination locations, and what is the price, and all these major points they want to see. Other informations they might overlook. And here also it depends on the scenario. So in different scenario their expectations will be different. For example, in the scenario this two photographs considers two different scenarios. One is I want to buy a ticket. For that people will be the user will be preconceived with have a preconceived mental model of perceiving some kind of some particular informations. For example, rate of journey and price of the ticket, what are the different available mode of transports are there. So they want to see only that. Then if the scenario 2 talks about how do I check my frequent flyer miles, then their perception of the mental model or the expectations will be different. They don't want to look at where will be the starting and end point of the journey and what are the different mode of transport. They will expect some different things, and what kind of already what is their travel history and what kind of free miles they already have. For that their information, they will follow a different path on the information architecture. They will go to the different tabs. So for that they even will look at some informations which are different, and so that so all these things depends on the scenario and the people's what users want to see. So those things we as we have already discussed, we have to follow those same principles. Now let us check two websites. One is one is a e-commerce website where there's a usability part is really high and there are a lot of informations, and let us discuss what we have already studied in the module and how it applies. So we'll check one e-commerce website and one ticket booking, flight booking website. We will check and we will discuss the usability in terms of typography, usability in terms of the principles like Gutenberg's principle and other principles, how are they following. So we'll select, we'll check Flipkart's e-commerce website and Clear Trip's flight booking website in the and we will discuss that. So here this is the Flipkart's website. We can see the Gutenberg's principle is clearly followed over here. So on the left top corner the Flipkart's logo is there, and all the informations are there in the top part. So electronics, appliances and all the major segments are written over there. And if we click on the major segment on each and on segment, and if we go to a particular product, on the top left corner the product's picture is there, which is the very important informations. And if we scroll down on the right hand side, top right corner and the bottom right corner, we see the other important informations, which is also quite important for the users. Right now let us check another e-commerce website, which is Snapdeal, and how they have designed their website, whether they are following the principles and design principles or not. So here let us see the Snapdeal. Similarly, the logo appears on the top corner, and even the search button is very important thing for the e-commerce website, because people already have something on their mind. So search button is again very important, so it's there on the top right left corner. And on the top right corner, there is, you can see the sign in and cart option. So that's also some important option, but which is lesser than the previous one. And even you might have noticed that the on the right on the fourth quadrant, there is a purchase button, which is also a very important information, so which comes on the fourth quadrant. Let us check then flight booking website. Here you can see on the left corner there is a logo appearing there, and all the informations are there in the second and third quadrant. And search flight button, you can see it's appearing on the fourth quadrant, which is one of the most important thing, and which happens after that. So all the process, if you look at the process, starts from the first quadrant and ends at the fourth quadrant, and all the informations are there on the second and third quadrant. Here also, if you launch to the main search page, so you can see in the ClearTrips website, it's all divided in the fourth quadrant. The function starts from the first quadrant and ends at the fourth quadrant. Now, after discussing the Flipkart and ClearTrips website, which was really functional, and the usability part was really high, we can check some websites where there are aesthetic style and has been given more emphasis. So for example, I came across one project by National Geography. So they have depicted the journey of some bears. So this was a promotional video and awareness to spread the awareness about the wildlife. So they have attached some few cameras on few bears on some particular location, and they recorded their point of how they perceive and what they do as an awareness generation program. So the content of the website was absolutely very different, and when people will check these websites, their mindset will be different. They won't be in hurry for if somebody is booking a flight and booking and or purchasing something from e-commerce website, their mindset will be different. And some people who's looking at National Geography's what bears and searching about bears and other animals, their mindset will be different. They mostly won't be in a hurry, and they want to enjoy the website, their information, the interaction with the website and the user is more important. So here a lot of gamified and UI transitions are added in the website, and the complete website is a process of storytelling, and it's a process of narrating. So here when we look at the website, we can see there are a lot of visual elements are added, a lot of emphasis has been given on the aesthetic. For example, while the page loads, beer walks, and then the page loads. So it takes a lot of time. It might be, the file might be heavy, so it might not open as quickly as the two websites which we discussed earlier. So here some functionality has been and the aesthetic is optimized here based on the user's need. So here we can and also some painted images are also there, and the videos of which has been taken from the camera attached with the beer is also there. So it takes a lot of time, and people will spend a lot of time with the and the developers and users want people to stay lot of time, spend much more time with the website. And so here in this website, their intention was different, and in the previous two websites we have discussed that the users, the designers want the users to do their job very quickly. So as quickly users can purchase the flight, or can purchase some goods from e-commerce site, the better functionality is there. But in these cases, more the time users spend with the website and interact with the gamified and with interesting UI transitions, the more successful the website is. So the intention of the website are absolutely different. So let us check the website. So here the website, you can see a lot of gamified user interface is there, and the way it is the UI transitions are happening is more interactive.
Yellowstone has been compared to the Serengeti of Africa. Putting cameras on bears, it's really...
So here we can see a lot of superimposition of videos. The website, what it talks about a viewer's eye view of a and which is done by a National Geographic channel. So unlike the previous website which we were discussing for e-commerce websites and flight booking websites, the user group who will check these kind of websites, which is done by the National Geographic channel, their mindset will be different, and they will have much more time to invest on the website. So the intention of the website is to grab users attention on the website, so that they spend more time on it. Unlikely on the previous other websites, for example e-commerce website and the flight booking websites, the process of the task has to be followed as quickly as possible. So here, for attracting people's attention, there are a lot of gamified user interactions which is there. So a lot of visual so visuals has a lot of attraction values, and you can see a lot of UI transitions, different kind of UI transitions are happening. The websites might be a little heavy than the previous one, and for these transitions, difficult coding is required. So after discussing and checking and discussing the web applications, let's move on to the animation and discuss some of the animations done by famous animators. So and mostly, as we were focusing on the 2D animation, as 3D animation has a lot of other added extra domains and extra factors into this, for example generating 3D models, and the software heavy implications are there in the 3D animation. So we are concentrating throughout this course on the 2D animation. So some of the famous 2D animations are here. So one is Father and Daughter, which got Academy Award in animated short films. And then there are Alexander Petrov's work are very interesting. So Alexander Petrov have done many animated movies. So one is The Old Man on the Sea, which is based on Ernest Hemingway's novel. So this animation, if we see, it was also the same process in the Father and Daughter. So each and every frame is painted painted by the artist. So in Father and Daughter, they have used the color of the quality, the visual quality of watercolor effect. So they they have gone with the monochromatic watercolor effect of the watercolor effect, and which also goes with the story. And each and every the characters' face are not clearly delineated, and which also talks about the father and daughter eternal relationship. So if we depict a particular face, give more detailing into the face, and then the character father and daughter becomes a particular man and a particular girl. But if in this animation, if you check this animation, this is available in online. So less intricate and less the characters were less intricate, the features were less. So people more user can associate themselves with the features, because it's more abstract, and facial features are less delineated and less detailed, and that's why it becomes a story of an eternal father and daughter relationship. So while selecting the style, while selecting the particular thinking about the color palette, thinking about the what kind of design principles and element we'll pick, we have to think about the storyline and what kind of visual will go with this, and whether we have to be each and every frames has to be very detailed or not. That is a that has to be decided by the designers based on the storyline and based on the what kind of communication we want. On the other hand, if you think that father and daughter's visual frame, and the Old Man and the Sea's visual frame. Old Man and the Sea is much more detailed. The walks of the characters and the facial features of the characters are much more detailed, and here on the other as compared to the father and daughter, where the features were more abstract and obscure. So in father and daughter, so the same process, each and every frames were created, and in Old Man and the Sea, each and every frames were created, and sketches for the characters, sketches for the background is also created. But the particular style which varies here, and with the father and daughter, based on the storyline. In Old Man and the Sea, a lot of visual effect has to be given because of the writing of Ernest Hemingway's writing, which demands a lot of visual detailing. So here Alexander Petrov have selected a very detailed painting. So each and every frame is properly detailed, and each and every features and background is properly detailed. Another example is of translating a paradigm shift of a 2D painting to animation is an animated movie on Vincent van Gogh's life. So in this also, each and every frame is painted, and the animated movie is generated by changing the frame in a particular in a very frequently changing the frame. So here, while selecting the particular art style, here it's talking about Van Gogh, and Van Gogh is one of the famous painter of Impressionist movement. So Impressionist style is selected over here. Impressionism is a part of a modern contemporary modern art movement, where this you can look at the Impressionist style of Van Gogh's Starry Night, where this photorealistic, it doesn't have a photorealistic quality, but it's like glittering, and it's a lot of colors are juxtaposed, and patches, impressions, color patches were there to create an impression of the picture, or impression of the landscape, or impression of the portrait painting. So here impression, as Van Gogh was the Impressionist painter, so while making a movie, animated movie on Van Gogh, Impressionist style of painting has been created. And here you can see each and every frame is painted. Here in this photograph you can see each and every image, each and every scenes are painted with Impressionist style of painting. Here you can see a picture which is also a frame of the animated movie, is painted by an artist. So so each and every frame is has a particular, so here we can see a paradigm shift of a Impressionist painting into a digital animated movie. Also there is Ben Gibbons animated work. The process of animated work over here is little different. Ben Gibbons works with two-dimensional digitally generated images. So unlike the previous examples, the first keyframes are not hand painted, so they are digitally generated, but they can have different artistic look. So one example was Harry Potter's Deathly Hallows, the story of three brothers, and this is also designed by Ben Gibbons. And some other examples of Ben Gibbons animation is also given over here. So here this is completely digitally generated. Even we also discussed the animated movie Paperman, where it looks like an hand painted image, which is done by Disney, but it also mimics the style of Disney's old hand painted image, but it's generated by a complete 3D animation. So first they have done some analysis on the what kind of visual style they want to have. Then they have developed some 3D models which is easy to animate, and that process of 3D animations is much fluent, and can be digitally tweaked later. So if you paint one frame, it's changing the frame is very difficult. In terms of digital modeling with 3D animations, you can change the model, change the setup and change the character's movement very easily. That's why they have followed a 3D animation technique, but had an impact of two-dimensional animation style. So that also we have discussed earlier. So in Bainhaven's this particular example of Harry Potter's animation, so again the backdrop scenarios and the settings and the keyframes were designed first, and also the characters were designed, and then after that they have superimposed, and then they have the designers have changed the background and have a particular visual style which goes with the which has been previously selected. So this is it, and we have discussed about some with the example of some web designs and some animation in the case studies. So hope you have enjoyed the course, and thank you.